And you will be receiving the recording and the presentation slides at the conclusion of the event today. If you do have any questions, please paste them in the chat box on the right of your screen, and we will do our best to answer them during the allotted time at the end of this session. Please do not send questions or messages to any of the presenters, as they will not see the chat function if they are sharing their screen. Please send them to everyone, or if you're not comfortable with everyone seeing them, please send them directly to me, again, Rebecca Patton. At the end of the summit, please remember to fill out the post survey found on the summit website. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Roberta Sabbath, Religious Studies Coordinator of Campus and Community Partnerships and Visiting Assistant Professor, Department of English. Roberta?
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you so much for your help in this venture. It's made it all very, very enjoyable. Good morning. We are so pleased you could join us for our presentation on Hate Uncycled, What's on Your Mind. We are excited to be with you and to be part of the NC Student Affairs Summit. We all witnessed and felt the year 2020 and 2021 replete with cascading crises, from the pandemic and health disparities to protests, riots, and cries for social justice and police reforms following the death of George Floyd and other unarmed Black Americans. So in February 2021, UNLV launched Hate Uncycled, What's on Your Mind, to confront these issues head on. Following the Anti-Defamation League's model, the 4-part series took place over 2 months as virtual panel discussions on YouTube. They were deep, honest, and forward-thinking conversations that responded to the cycles of bias and hate, systemic hate, that still threaten and challenge communities of color. These discussions challenge students, faculty, staff, campus police, and community partners to become leaders in addressing bias and hate. They provoked deep thinking about the meaning of inclusion and gave urgency to the need for policies and practices that promote equity. In short, we hoped these conversations introduced a new cycle: educate, prevent, prepare, respond, and heal. We've structured today's presentation as a similar panel discussion to demonstrate how students, together with faculty, student affairs, and community partners, can marry academic experiences with public discourse and, most importantly, action. And we hope to showcase how student voices can be the leading voices in affecting social change. The full series of Hate Uncycled, What's on Your Mind conversations can still be viewed on the UNLV website, and we're going to have the links in the chat box. And also, if you just Google Hate Uncycled UNLV, the links pop up. Please feel free to join the conversation by typing your comments and questions in the chat. We'll kick off our presentation with a land acknowledgement. The University of Nevada, Las Vegas wishes to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities of this region and recognize that the university is situated on the traditional homelands of the Nuuvi Southern Paiute people. We offer gratitude for the land itself and for those who have stewarded it for generations, and for the opportunity to study, learn, work, and be in community with this land and these peoples. We encourage everyone in this space to engage in continued learning about indigenous peoples who work and live on this land since time immemorial, including the Las Vegas Paiute tribe and the Moapa Band of Paiutes, and about the historical and present realities of colonialism. As one of the most diverse universities in the United States, UNLV believes it is important to recognize and appreciate the use of Southern Paiute land as part of its mission to be in a welcoming and inclusive space for working and learning. Now it's my pleasure to turn it over to our panelists. If you each would please introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about yourself and what's on your mind. Let's begin with Jose Melendrez. Jose? What's on your mind?
Thank you, Roberta. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jose Melendrez, and I am the Executive Director in the Office of Community Partnerships for the UNLV School of Public Health. And I currently chair the Nevada Minority Health and Equity Coalition, which is was a standalone 501c3 nonprofit organization, which is now part of the programming family of the School of Public Health. So we're back in collaboration with UNLV and doing our work. And so, well, as part of my part of the Hate Uncycled conversation, and thank you, Roberta, for inviting me to be a part of this. I have the privilege of, with the School of Public Health and the coalition, in response to the current pandemic and the issues that it's brought forward in regards to, not only racism, social injustice, all those other things that we've been talking about that have been in the forefront, but the pandemic really brought that to the forefront when you think historically about the impact on communities of colors, now BIPOC, people of color communities, diversity and equity populations, the impact of the coronavirus and what it's done in terms of devastation of those communities. I'll just speak to Nevada. In Nevada, at any given time, at the forefront of the folks who have been impacted by the coronavirus, meaning either getting sick or dying from it, at one point has been the African American community, at another point has been the Latino Latinx community, at another point has been specifically Asian Pacific Islander. Our Filipino community at one point was at the forefront of those who were getting hit the hardest, again, either from getting sick or dying. And so the inequities that the pandemic has brought to the forefront, are critical for us to understand, in the sense of the roles and the responsibilities and the work that we all need to do, whether you're in public health or not, that we all have a responsibility to engage and address those issues. And so the coalition, specifically, we were funded through CARES Act last semester, dollars that came through the state of Nevada, the Department of Health and Human Services. And what we came up with was the One Community campaign. And what that did was take, and I know everybody's, you probably know these inside and out in regards to all the things we have to be doing to keep ourselves safe and healthy during the pandemic, right? So social distancing, mask wearing, washing your hands all the time, staying away from big crowds, all those other things. But the challenge was, how do you put that message and how do you reach out in a culturally competent manner, understanding cultural humility, cultural relevance, all those things that need to be addressed, because when we talk about public health specifically, those diverse and equity populations, as I like to frame it, have not always been at the table, or they've been the victims of unfortunate initiatives like the Tuskegee trials and all those other things that took place, or the testing that was put on African American slaves, back when. So those things, those are still historically, those are still in the minds of a lot of folks. And so when we do this kind of work, we have to acknowledge the history. We have to understand the mistrust that exists in some of these communities. And then unfortunately, and I don't mean to get political, but unfortunately, the misinformation and miscommunication that was put out there with the previous administration. And so what the One Community campaign did, or our priority was, to take into account all of those issues, understand those issues, and understand that how we communicate and how we get information to address the historical mistrust and mishappenings that have taken place, is that we have to have honest communication. We have to have critical information, and we have to probably most important, the process of inclusiveness. We have to make sure that everybody is at the table. And so our approach of the method that we utilize is through community-based participatory research. And that brings, we take our community organizations. And so for this work, the 7 populations we were able to targeted to work with were African American, Latino, Latinx, Native American, Pacific Islander, Asian, deaf and hard of hearing, and LGBTQ+. And so of that group, we were able to identify those 7 populations as most vulnerable, but then bring them to the table. And we actually identified, I think it was 11 organizations from those groups who worked with us to develop the messaging, to develop the process for outreach and communication, the process for engaging. And so they were trained through our work. They were trained on how to run focus groups. They were trained on how to do key informant interviews. They are part of, this is why it's taking a little bit longer. I know that I was asked, hey, are there any reports and information you can provide as part of it? We will in the next
Jose, you have 1 more minute.
Thank you. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be putting out information of our findings from all of these groups, and our community partners, they were hands-on with gathering the data, bringing the information to the forefront, and now reviewing all the materials that are being produced. And so this is just an example of the intentionality of what we need to do to make sure that all those folks are at the table with us when we address these inequities, especially right now with the issue of public health and the pandemic. They need to be at the table with us so that we can make sure all of our voices are being heard, and that we have a place to make real decisions that impact our community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Maggie Camp, who are you and what's on your mind?
Good morning. It's great to be here, and thank you, Roberta and Juliet, for organizing this panel and the Hate Uncycled series. And thank you to Jose for that vital work that you're doing in our community with the One Community campaign. I think it'll be kind of easy to see how our work is all connected. So I'm Dr. Margaret Campy. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the director of the Jean Nidetch Care Center at UNLV. Our office is actually the only campus-based dual service office in NC that's providing confidential victim advocacy services for students, staff, and faculty who have been impacted by interpersonal violence. And so interpersonal violence is a term that we use to encompass a number of different forms of power-based violence, including sexual assault, sexual harassment, family violence, stalking, domestic or dating violence. However, I'm very happy to report that our office has received grant funding to pilot the expansion of our services to College of Southern Nevada and Nevada State. Expanding these resources, now they're available to about 30,000 students at UNLV, but they'll be available to around 70,000 students across Southern Nevada at our NC institution. So that's really exciting. And I'd really like to just take one moment to thank the administrators at NSC and CSN who reached out to us, as well as the broad support we've had from the UNLV administration. Vice President of Public Safety, Adam Garcia, was very supportive in this initiative, and as well as Chancellor Rose. So I'd be remiss if I didn't give a little shout out there now that we've actually received the funding. So you might be thinking, right, I thought this panel was about addressing racism. Well, it is. And so racism doesn't exist in a vacuum. And unfortunately, what we know is that those who are most marginalized, including, particularly Black and brown folks, those that are trans, queer, those with disabilities, they're also the most at risk for experiencing interpersonal violence. So, add to that this pandemic that's disparately affecting communities of color, as Jose just explained. And we add yet another stressor and variable that, individuals and communities need to take into consideration when weighing and deciding, what resources are going to work for them. And more importantly, what's going to be safest. That question becomes really complex when accessing resources that, again, as Jose pointed out, may have been historically harmful to them, and also now may be increasing their risk of contracting a potentially deadly disease, right? Some of these resources may increase exposure to COVID-19. So Southern Nevada is really diverse, and so are the student bodies at Southern Nevada institutions. UNLV, NSC, and CSN are all minority serving institutions, and this is a wonderful thing, right? But as higher ed administrators, I think it also means that we need to be creative. We need to listen. We need to believe our students when they explain their experiences, as they are the experts in their own lives. And so whether that's related to interpersonal violence or otherwise, listening to those experiences is really, really, important, I think, for all of us as higher ed administrators. So at the Care Center, we really know that if we center those who are most marginalized, who are most vulnerable and at risk for experiencing interpersonal violence, as we develop our advocacy, our education, our outreach programming, we're going to be creating programming that's better for all of our students by doing that. And so what does that look like, right? Because in practice, so give me an example. So I think that looks like incorporating, robust empirical evaluation of our programming. So constantly being reflexive and asking ourselves, how is what we're doing affecting our most vulnerable students? How accessible is our office? What are the barriers? Are the resources that we're providing helpful and appropriate? And then being prepared to use that evaluation to critically examine and change or develop new programming as needed. So, for instance, we often refer students to therapy or counseling, either at CAPS or in the community. But for anybody who's tried to find a therapist in the community, our referrals to CAPS are a lot smoother, right? Because we're in the same institution and we have a developed referral process and we know a lot more about CAPS. But for anybody who's ever tried to find a therapist, there are all these hoops that you have to jump through, right? Including figuring out things like, do they take insurance? Are they taking new patients? And then on top of that, students who are marginalized have to gauge whether or not this person is going to be safe or helpful. So we partnered with the Office of Student Diversity and Social Justice to create a list of providers where we asked if they take insurance. Do they have a sliding scale fee? Are they taking patients? We also asked them to respond to a survey that gauges their comfort level in working with different diverse populations, including LGBTQ2IA+ clients, racial and ethnic minorities, those with disabilities. So at least some of the legwork is taken care of. So we also created—
I have one more minute.
You got it. We also created something called the Healing Zine, the Student's Radical Guide to Healing. And that's a guide that brings students through various different healing modalities. So it includes systemic resources like therapy and counseling, but it also includes things like meditation, journaling, yoga, and various other types of holistic healing modalities. And, sort of step-by-step guiding those through each resource, helping them navigate and explore what might work for them. Acknowledging the dominant and normative resources that are there. It might not be what all of our clients need, right? Healing is unique to each individual, particularly in a diverse student body. So we've also put into place bi-directional warm referral processes and agreements with systemic resources, providing accompaniment to police interviews, Title IX meetings, or helping a student connect with CAPS or the Disability Resource Center. Often IPV survivors don't report to any official source, but for some clients, making a Title IX report or a police report is part of their healing process. So sometimes these systems come into their lives without their seeking as well. And then we're able to provide support and help a student navigate these systemic interactions.
Thank you, Maggie, so much. Oh my gosh. The problem is we're trying to squeeze so much in, and there are links to how to contact each of us on the panel in the chat box so that you know where to outreach and where to make that connection. And now it is my pleasure to ask Celestina. Who are you, Celestina, and what's on your mind?
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to just continue right on this related multifaceted train as both Maggie and Jose touched on. So I'm really glad you both mentioned that student-centered approach, asking people to come to the table. I represent a student voice here today. I'm Celestina, and I'm a recent Bachelor of Social Work graduate, and I will be starting my master's in about 3 weeks now. So coming from the social work discipline, we use similar trauma-informed and victim-centered interventions. And so it's really our responsibility to amplify these voices and perspectives, ensuring this representation meets a standard and excels that. So I love all the work you're doing at the Women's Center, and Jose, thank you as well. A large part of my contribution to this conversation and the Hate Uncycled conversation comes from the work I do with the Criminal Justice Department. Through the Greenspun College of Urban Affairs, there's a really great example of how multiple perspectives come together collectively to collaborate on solving urban issues. I support and teach a class called Urban Adventure, where we focus on multiple social issues, and we use experiential learning where the students can really take a hands-on approach on practicing these critical skills like communication, leadership, and empathy that really make for better, well-rounded citizens that can go out into the community and continue the cycle. Throughout the semester, we tackled difficult topics from sexual assault to homelessness to race relations. The impact I see it making is when you take a class of students who may never have been exposed to this otherwise, and then suddenly they're thrust into this chaotic environment as leaders, and they get to interact with each other as a team, but also individuals who are experiencing crisis that are very different from them. We guide them through this and teach them empathetic ways to communicate. But honestly, being a support, I am amazed by the students who we don't even have to say anything. They are just natural leaders, natural communicators. So one semester specifically, we addressed the role of race in a fatal police shooting. Students were shown body cam footage of an innocent young Black woman who was shot at the hands of a police officer, and the team arrived on scene to investigate. Thankfully, this scene specifically was staged and they were actors, everyone was live and okay, but as we know, that's not always the case. So the impact that it had lasted, and it really resonates with today's plight. It was really emotional and tragic, and students were able to work through it alongside, we actually bring in retired Metro officers to come and help students. So students were able to navigate the scene and through the situation with a new lens and appreciation for law enforcement. So that's where community relationship comes in. It's really important that there's transparency and people can look to our law enforcement and people in power and realize, can I trust you? And that presence means a lot for students. While also at the same time, they were looking at the victim and realizing, that common sentiment of that could have been me, which is really scary. So it impacted me as much as it did students to be able to relate to both the woman and the police officer at the same time. And that's only one small piece of what the college is doing at a class level. As a whole, the college has initiatives geared toward community resilience. The college uses the 5 majors: criminal justice, journalism, social work, communications, and public policy and leadership, to take the different strengths and perspectives as a way to address these issues and lead change. So not only this group we have here today, but Greenspun College and then UNLV as a whole, I think we are really going to be a shining model for Las Vegas. We're a relatively small community, but we do uphold the standard here that the city could model and inspire across the nation as an example. And that, I think that's exactly where the key lies. Change begins in many ways. And as we have seen over the past couple months, the power of the human experience and combined voices will spark nationwide change. So the solution starts with me and you and everybody watching here today, that whatever privilege or power that we have platform, we should use, whether it's educational, familial, social, economic. It makes us responsible to speak up and advocate for someone else who has been disadvantaged or discriminated against. That's why I pursue social work. I want to be that person. And even today, if I'm just one small voice of the student body at UNLV, I could be representing a whole group, which is really important for me. Change is a decision that we must all accept today, and it begins and manifests in the relationships that we have with people around us. So care for others on an individual level until it becomes societal. But like anything, it's never just that easy. Putting these conversations at the forefront and headlines, it will awaken people, but sometimes that's just not enough, unfortunately. And so it's not even just one law or policy. Again, leaning back on my social work background, we talk about something called systems theory, and that's every individual is working within their own system, whether that be their resources, what's available to them socioeconomically, or just their overall environment. These can either work or against them in their circumstances. Change doesn't just take place at the ground level, so it will take all these different pieces and parts of the puzzle to kind of meet in the middle and find some change. We cannot ignore the structural barriers in place, but also there's going to be different stakeholders and community members that help this. So I'm hoping for and believing in a kinder and more tolerant society. I'm so proud of this generation and the progress that we've made, and excited for the progress that we haven't. So I'm inspired by my students and my peers and everybody here today who are getting ready to become that next generation of workers and community members that are actively working toward this better future.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Celestina. And now it is my pleasure to look to Rayshawn Williams. Rayshawn, who are you? And what's on your mind? And I have to thank you for the concept of the question, the core of this Hate Uncycled program. What's on your mind? Thank you.
Oh, good morning, Doctor. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rayshawn Williams. I'm a veteran from the United States Marine Corps, exiting in 2005. I work with the Military and Veteran Service Center as a PAVE peer advisor. PAVE stands for Peer Advisor for Veteran Education. Basically, we partner with the new incoming students and pretty much help them integrate, find the resources, overcome any challenges, frustrations that might arise as they try to acclimate to academic setting. I also graduated in 2020, the fall, with my degree in with my bachelor's in social work and also a bachelor's in criminal justice. I also am a current, stumbling over words. I'm also a current graduate student studying the master's of social work. I'm also a employee with the Center for Academic Enrichment and Outreach at the Educational Opportunity Center. So reflecting back on the segment, the topic, what does anti-racism look like in a pandemic? And recently read literature and the status of current events, I can say yes, racism is a factor that has been present on and off the campus. And as a veteran, paid peer advisor, a student, and now a letter of appointment staff member with the TRIO programming, I would say that I'm not speaking for or from a particular agency, race, or sexual orientation, or group, but as myself in the light of being affiliated with such. And as a veteran, it can be said that the eyes were pretty much built to be colorblind and to work in, with and in various cultures. To the same degree, that can be said for various institutions. However, this can and cannot be problematic. As our segment discussed, we are promoting multi-efforts and connections, visibility, diversity, and inclusion. And for some, they may see, feel, or perpetuate an uncanny negative effect from such reasoning. Behind that last portion is by being colorblind, the voices, identities that signify that particular culture may seem suppressed, ignored, or avoided by adopting that universalist kind of approach to appease. So it's important, as it's discussed in the segment, to highlight, the individual cultures and allow them to thrive, but also create open forums where the discussions can air out, concerns. So, what we did is very pivotal to those who are trying to find their place and understand what's going on and get additional information. Also, you have, student organizations, specialized departments, and healing spaces such as those that are provided by UNLV's counseling and psychological services, which meet weekly and are exclusive to a specific group. Not to be discriminatory, but exclusive for the purposes of healing. It is not easy to access, to assess that puzzle piece that goes to a puzzle where the number of pieces are not, not counted. Pretty much, being that individual in a mass space, and you're not, it's specifically, connected to a particular point, but just trying to find your place. Not, being that, it's not easy to assess that, piece that goes to this puzzle, but where that piece, but where the number of pieces are not counted. However, there is a place for it. So being that you, me, we, or us may be that piece, there's a place that we can lock into, and we should be hopeful and optimistic that each will find that place, and where with these resources that are available, we can combat the biases and learn behavior patterns at the site of the first warning signs. I just want to kind of keep it short. I know you said you have a few other people going, so.
Well, Rayshawn, could you tell us a little bit about the Veterans Unique, just in the last minute or two you have left?
Well, when it comes to the veteran population, the veterans are very, very, very different. They're in their own right. Not saying that trying to put them in a particular box, but basically veterans have a lot of baggage that they carry coming into the academic setting from trauma, a lot of different stressors. They deal with racial issues in the uniform and outside the uniform. There are they have families, some are single, some are not. So there's a lot of different unique elements that go into being a veteran that really implement them actually being a integrated part of the academic setting. So they're trying to get them comfortable, is a challenge, which is why, the Military and Veteran Service Center strives to basically connect with all the resources and try to, advocate on the veterans' behalf to ensure that they're fairly treated and they're not discriminated and they have a place and feel comfortable being here. As of this year, I believe we're number 5 as far as a veteran-friendly schools. Don't quote me on that, but we're up there as far as being veteran-friendly.
Oh, thank you. And could you tell us a little bit about the Center for Academic Enrichment and Outreach that I know you now work for, but I've just learned about this powerful program in a minute or two.
Well, I work with the Educational Outreach Center, and where I am seated, we pretty much are helping those who are trying to actually get back into that academic setting or obtain their high school equivalents.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to take the place of the Indigenous voices who couldn't be here this morning, who participated in Hate Uncycled. And I'm going to take a moment to screen share some notes that Mercedes Krause prepared just to show you what, just to show you all of the powerful pieces that are being done in the Indigenous world. Rebecca, can you see my PowerPoint?
I can. It is
Okay.
showing a little funny. There we go. Perfect.
Okay, is that full screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it is. Okay, good. So if you want to read, those who are in attendance, Mercedes was one of the voices on Hate Uncycled, and she's active at the state, the local, Clark County School District, UNLV, among UNLV alumni, leading in the Indigenous voice empowerment. And she put together these 3 or 4 slides. She says the Indigenous voices are on fire, and I quote Mercedes, that's so Mercedes, in terms of the way they are being empowered and the importance that UNLV education has played in that ability to empower agency. UNLV now, just as a note, has a mixed native UNLV. Annika Racine is very passionate about mental health and community outreach. We have 2 scholars for the first time at the UC Santa Cruz Doris Duke Conservation Program and the 2021 internship at Sykes Microbial Lab University in Kansas Haskell Tribal College. Saul Martinez is very active in the Native community Get Out the Vote here in Las Vegas, as is Elena Marcos. Ryan Boone, the former president of our Native UNLV Association, is now the vice president of the Nevada Native American Caucus. In terms of alumni, we have a program in Las Vegas called United Natives Health, as well as the very powerful, well-known Fawn Douglas, who consulted with Mayo Wolf. Those who don't know about the Mayo Wolf cultural immersive experience, I've been to the one in New Mexico, Santa Fe, now as one in Las Vegas. And she's the founder with the New Woo Art and Community Center, along with one of our other UNLV professors. And this is brand new in Las Vegas. We also have a host of the upcoming NPR series on Native Nevada, and Mercedes herself, who is the Minority Affairs Commissioner in Education, the NEA Executive Board Member, Nevada Native American Caucus Chair, Vice President of Indigenous Educators Empowerment, and the proud parents of 2 UNLV students. And other alumni activities include the Executive Director of the Las Vegas Indian Center, as well as the involvement with the Civic Engagement Mentorship Program here in Las Vegas. So it was my joy to be able to include you in that very fast overview of just how powerful an education at one of our Southern Nevada, or statewide, excuse me, statewide universities can be in empowering our students for social change and action. And I'm proud to say that one of the most compelling things from my personal experience was when Ryan Boone, who, as I mentioned, is former president of UNLV Native Student Association, said that UNLV travels all over the country, the world to recruit, but doesn't go to the Paiute Reservation, which is 40 minutes away. And that kind of stuck with me, having been a Vista volunteer in Kodiak, Alaska, a million moons ago. And I've reached out now to the department that Rayshawn works with and to our own recruitment people. And that is definitely something that they and Mercedes and Fawn and so on will be working forward. So in terms of acknowledgement and action, that has been the ethos of Hate Uncycled. So I would like to hear from anybody who participated who is here. I would really, really appreciate your commenting on anything that you heard. This is as much a collaborative project as it is something that, you know, we're offering as an education, both to acknowledge, to heal, and to develop some sort of an action plan. Some things that you're doing on your campuses that are analogous. So I would really appreciate, and as my want in class, if nobody speaks up, I might call on you. So please speak up. And if anyone has a question, just unmute yourself and talk. Rebecca, if you have questions in the chat box, please feel free to speak up as well. Okay, Jody, what's on your mind? Jody, are you there? Or how about Michael? What's on your mind, Michael? I think it would be really interesting for us to share experiences that we see on our campus or reaction perhaps to the trial and the guilty plea, or programs that you've been considering on your campus. So we would really appreciate if anyone would care to share. How about you, Stephanie? You willing to talk?
Sure, I can speak a little bit from the Nevada State College perspective. I served there as a senior academic advisor for liberal arts and sciences students. It's been a bit hard to say what the student reaction is to the results of the trial because we're still pretty remote in the pandemic. But I was very impressed that a lot of our different offices on campus, like the Academic Success Center, were putting out statements on their Instagrams showing support for students and letting them know about campus resources. So I don't know if that was a collected effort or if there were just really great student services professionals in each of those offices trying their best to reach out to students in remote ways, in any ways that they could possibly try to reach them, social media, what have you. The college did send out some official emails too. So I think they've done a pretty good job getting the message out there about support services, but unfortunately being remote, it's kind of hard to say what the overall feeling is on campus, but hopefully, at least what I'm feeling is a sense of accountability, some relief, but not enough.
Right. Larry, what's on your mind? You willing to talk?
Well, I've been involved with the Latino Alliance here at CSN, attending their meetings, also with the African American Heritage Committee here at CSN, and there's plenty of discussion with what's going on in society, and I'm happy to see that there are these discussions going on, that these things do need to be talked about. Hopefully we will be able to find some solutions that we can work with and be able to move forward as a society. Something that I'm hoping that we can build at CSN is something where we have a multicultural committee that is able to bring everyone together and bring forward solutions, things that we can help each other with, and have discussions about how to deal with racism different positive approaches that can be utilized amongst employees and our students as well to come together and talk these issues out.
Oh, thank you. Gabriella, are you willing to share what's on your mind? Gabriella, are you there? How about you, Michael? Oh, Gabriella, great. Nice to see you. Oh, and we get to see you. Yay.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I'm excited about what I've been hearing. So I think I'm mostly like in a reflective state right now. So
Where are you? What city?
yeah. So I'm at the University of Nevada, Reno. I'm in the Center for Student Engagement.
Okay.
So I work primarily with student government and clubs and organizations.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Alicia, how about you? Want to share something or would you share something?
Sure. So as far as efforts, I guess the only thing I can share coming from Nevada State College, we're a very tight-knit community and we try to be an inclusive campus as best we can. This topic is hard for me as a Filipino American, suffering just like normal interactions, my mother, grandmother experiencing racism during COVID and things of that nature. I guess in my position as a transfer specialist, I see every student before they're admitted, and they do ask me if the campus is safe for housing, things of that nature. So I think that Nevada State College does a great job with accepting students, or making them feel safe and making them feel validated and giving them a platform to sort of express their own experiences. I think also presentations like this with all the initiatives for students in those groups who are currently a target because of things they can't control. I think it's very helpful to just spread awareness that it is a thing that happens and their experiences are valid. I think we are stepping in the right direction just with awareness and not erasing someone's race, right? One of the presenters mentioned that being colorblind, being colorblind is more detrimental than acknowledging someone's cultural reality. So, yeah.
Rayshawn, do you want to jump in and respond to that? Because I think you touched Alicia, and I think that's important. Oh, Rayshawn, while you're gathering your thoughts, Stephanie, I see you put something in the chat. Would you like to share something?
Yeah, just kind of jumping on to what Alicia said as well and speaking on her personal experience. I think that NSC does do a pretty decent job of catering to the students who are there. We do have a very diverse student population, and it shows in the way that our programs are based. You know, our criminal justice program specifically is a very social justice based program. They look at things from a very social justice focused lens through the criminal justice system. So I think that students have a very good sense of belonging on campus, in that they are reflected in our faculty and they're reflected in their experiences, are reflected in what they're learning in the classroom too.
Oh, thank you. Michael, would you care to share something? Are you there? How about you? Let's see, Brandy. Have I called on you yet?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you very much for presenting today. And I definitely want to particularly thank Rayshawn for his service. I'm a military brat, so I totally understand and support you guys and how you've served. Thank you so much. I work at University of Nevada, Reno in counseling services, the psychological counseling department. And so I'm really excited. We're actively recruiting 2 BIPOC serving clinicians here. We filled 1 position and we're looking for another one, but I do like that we're actively looking to serve our BIPOC community here. As far as the verdict, that was interesting. I've been listening, but not like, I've never seen the George Floyd video. I have a Black son and I just don't even want to, I couldn't even look at it. And then with the whole trial, I never watched any of it. I just watched that end where the verdict was stated, and that was at work, and I was bawling. And fortunately, I work in a really welcoming environment, and everybody came and checked on me. UNR immediately, like minutes after the verdict, sent out correspondence commending everything. And so I just felt really supported here. I feel like my department in particular is actively looking for change and working for change. We have a diversity task force here that's very active as well on the university campus. So I am excited, and I do feel that UNR is going in the right direction for us. And I think NSHE in Nevada overall is doing great in that area.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to give our panelists just a chance to say goodbye for a moment. And Jose, the floor is yours.
No, just thank you for the opportunity to present today. You know, I think our from all of our presenters, Dr. Camp and everyone else, you know, we're all doing important work, and the times are very, there's a lot of challenges right now, but I think there's a lot of really good things happening on the national level. The state of Nevada, there's a lot of things happening that we all just kind of need to make sure we're all sharing and communicating so that we can all do our part to create a better place for everybody. So thank you for the opportunity today, and I look forward to continue working with everybody.
Thank you. Maggie?
You know, I think Jose said it really well. I don't know if I can say anything too much more than that. I'm really appreciative to be here. It's really good to hear about the other things that are going on, especially as somebody who's relatively new to Nevada. I just moved, you know, I've been at UNLV just 1 year now. And so I've been working here entirely during a pandemic, which has had its own challenges, but I felt connections to a lot of folks, and I've been privileged to be a part of these events where I get to learn more about what's going on, the efforts, more about places we can make connections. And I'm just really looking forward to also making those connections on you know, College of Southern Nevada campuses and on Nevada State College campuses, and really trying to, you know, weave together our Southern Nevada community by serving students. So
Thank you. Celestina, do you have a moment to?
Sure, I'll just say thank you again, everyone, for not only letting us speak, but giving your time today to listen. My closing thoughts are mostly days like today are so important for everyone, but today, what it meant to me was we can get caught up in the mundane of everyday life, and you know, your caseloads, you know, starts piling up, your paperwork, your emails, and then days like today remind me that we are doing it and it's worth it, and the change is coming. So it's a great reminder today, refreshing to hear from all of you.
Thank you. Rayshawn, do you have a moment to say your goodbyes?
I'd like to say thank you to everyone, and it's great to hear there are so many people that are you know, willing and wanting to assist the change of direction and information flow. So it's very great to hear. Again, thank you for everyone who's here. And also, Alicia, I didn't catch the very tail. I wasn't ignoring, so sorry about that. I just kind of missed that little end to fully give an accurate comment. But I was listening.
Amazing. It's been such a joy to meet you and to meet our people working around the great state of Nevada. Thank you for coming. You know where to find us, the links. Juliet, say goodbye. Juliet, talk. Juliet Casey, who made all this possible, made the platforming possible, the outreach, the marketing, made it all feel easy. Juliet Casey.
Okay, I don't know if my screen is working.
You're fine. I can see you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, this has been an incredibly humbling experience, meeting everybody and having the opportunity to have a hand in really positioning UNLV to lead public discourse as an integral participant in the community, as opposed what is sometimes an impression of a university is, people twiddling their thumbs in an ivory tower. We understand that we are people who are of and with the community. We also wanted this program to lend context to the pandemic and social justice and inequities that have come to the fore, as Dr. Sabbath has said. And again, to begin to educate and prepare and respond to heal. And we have actually seen some real outcomes, as Dr. Sabbath mentioned. Things bubbled up in these conversations that were authentic. They were not scripted necessarily. We had talking points, but through the question and answer portion of it, we learned that we as an institution had a blind spot, for example, to recruiting Native American students from our own backyard. And so that prompted us to action. So again, that's the responding and healing part of it. So from a communications perspective, we always are trying to understand, had our message hit home? Did it have an impact? Are we informing people to help them make better decisions or to choose to take some action? And again, this is probably in my long career as a communicator, one of the most impactful projects that I've been a part of. Putting it on YouTube and then recording it and then continuing to make it available has helped us continue to reach broader and broader audiences. It also facilitated media coverage where members of the media were able to, pick and choose which content was relevant to the news of the day, and literally edit snippets to fit the story. So again, we were able to broaden to an even more general audience and hopefully touch more community members and, possibly have them think about things in a way that maybe hadn't been presented previously in mainstream media. So again, it's just been a true honor to work and meet with every one of our panelists, and also to hear directly from our students, faculty, staff, and even some folks outside the community and our community partners. It is possible to build a better future. We just have to, as Celestina said, work on listening. I think sometimes that's the harder part of communication. I tend to be overly chatty. So I'm still working on my listening skills, but this was definitely a great opportunity for me, as much as it was, something that we were able to achieve together. It's just been a great learning experience. And again, I can't thank everyone enough.
And thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca Patton, for handling the technology and calling time, darn it. Take care. You know where to find us.
Have a wonderful day, guys.
Thank you all so much. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye.
Thank you.